I am very well. How is Rockland County today?
Hey, Rockland, how are you?
We're okay.
Oh, wow. Rockland County has a really high-pitched voice.
Yes, we do.
Oh, goodness. Why did that remind me of Psycho?
Great. It doesn't remind you of Mickey Mouse, or is that the Psycho you were referring to?
Psycho came to mind. Norman's mother.
Well, on that note.
On that note, let's get a little psycho, or psychic. So we covered a lot of things last week, but the story that I wanted to talk about today, there's a very interesting trend going on in and around the Hudson Valley, and I hope it finds its way to Rockland County. There's some excellent opportunity, and I'll tell you what that is. The latest iteration of the independent bookstore is becoming a very exciting hybrid of a thing. And what I mean by that is bookstores are, as I put in the story, Cheers meets Central Perk meets TED Talks. So the independent bookstores that are cropping up all around the Hudson Valley, pretty much except, Rockland, have everything from coffee bars, beer, cideries, wine bars, artisanal bakery, what else? Lots of events, talks.
You know what this all sounds like to me, though? It sounds like it's just a fancy way to say, you know that stuff you eat every day? This is where you come to do it really expensively.
No. What it is using books, or I don't know which one is the lure, okay? I don't know if the lure is, let's set up a bookshop because people crave that old-style bookshop, but we're going to lure them with all the food and the community and the couches and something that feels a whole lot better than Starbucks.
Do you remember Caffeine Jones, which did that in New City a long time ago? Do you remember that place?
How long? It must have been more than a decade ago.
It was definitely more than a decade ago, yeah. But Caffeine Jones was a place like that. I think it was in the place where Boston Market is currently.
Yeah.
Or next door to it, I think it was that area. It was a coffee shop.
Yeah, they're gone too. So.
Right. They had the coffee shop. They had the couches and the books and magazines scattered about. But I agree with you. I think that's what retail needs to do. As opposed to just selling food or just being a place to lounge. You got to have some kind of lure, a pull to bring you in, off the internet and do things.
Well, it was the last day of 2019, and I took a trip up to, it's called Rough Draft Bar and Books, and it's in Kingston. Okay, I could barely get a parking spot around it. For one thing, and I've never recalled Kingston being hard to park in. Anyway, you walk in there, and it was swarming, okay? It was right out of somewhat like sort of 1999 Shakespeare and Company. It was like, as I say in the story, Meg Ryan's character in You've Got Mail, she would start twirling with happiness if she had walked into that bookstore. You had people sitting around on there was a small group plotting to get Andrew Wang elected as president. There were people sitting lined up at the bar drinking coffee. I don't think it was beer yet because it was still pretty early, but it might have been. It was around 11-something. The place was packed. Were people buying books? I'm not sure. They were browsing through them. Were they willing to pay 30% more than they would pay on Amazon? Maybe for the sake of loyalty, maybe for the sake of instant gratification, but I could tell you that the cash register was definitely ringing, at least with pastries and coffee and whatever else people were. But the point is that people were there. They were there. It wasn't. Have you gone to a Barnes and Noble recently?
I have.
You could bowl there. You can send the bowling ball down an aisle. You probably wouldn't hit anybody.
I can't believe how big Barnes and Noble's bookstores continues to be, and they're still around.
Well, here's
that boggles my mind.
Well, here's the postscript in the story that we published about Barnes and Noble. So it really is the only, major giant bookstore that's still afloat. Borders closed all of its 600 stores years ago, and Barnes. So Barnes and Noble. It's here's an interesting thing. Well, wait. Let me tell you this thing first. So recently, they've been acquired for $638 million by an investment firm known as Elliott Management. And that investment firm also recently acquired the British equivalent of Barnes & Noble called Waterstones. And so there's some anticipation that this company will be able to keep Barnes & Noble afloat. I think we'll see. Where it relates to Rockland is, can two Barnes & Nobles in such close proximity survive here in this county? That, I think, is something to watch.
Where's the other one? The one that my granddaughter goes to all the time is right over there in Nanuet.
Well, there's also one in Palisade Center. Still.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So we've got two of them here. Now, what is interesting, I did a little mapping, and what I did note was, so these independent bookstores are cropping up in like Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, Kingston, Cold Spring, and when I mapped the Barnes & Noble in the Hudson Valley, I noticed that the Barnes & Noble are often in or near enough those markets. So I guess the presumption of these independent bookstores is that they can survive in a market where Barnes & Noble is still a quick ride away for their patrons. They can choose.
People walking around Nyack for their public book for their small independent bookstore aren't going to necessarily just run and jump up and go to Barnes and Noble if they think they're going to save $1 on the book that they might get there.
Yeah, but it's not $1. See, now I'm gonna have to make an admission here. I found the book that I wanted to purchase that day that I was at Rough Draft.
Okay.
And it was $26. And I thought, oof, that's a lot. But books, gotta support books. And I Googled Amazon to see what the difference was, and it was the same book was $14.
Whoa!
So that's.
But you couldn't have it immediately.
That's true.
And you weren't supporting a local business.
Right.
And that for some people becomes a big part of it. The $6 you save now is the local jobs that you have and the retail you have in your town square, right now. So that's the offshoot of it.
Well, I'll tell you, I wish that we had something that looked like I wish that we had a Rough Draft book and books somewhere. Within 5 to 10 minutes that I could get in my car and drive to, because there are days when, you just want to be amongst human beings, and
there are lots of days you don't.
Well, and I have the pleasure of having that privilege,
right?
Because I pretty much, work, alone. So I have that kind of isolation, but. I'm from the city. I grew up in the city. I was, a Manhattan creature. And sometimes you want to go out and you just want to have that humanity around you. And that bookstore had exactly that vibe. It's not like Starbucks, which is just, it's just as soul crushing as you may as well just, to me, you may as well just, the only reason I suppose to go to Starbucks is to actually have a coffee. But with this, it's a whole different vibe. It's that feeling of being in a community. And then all of what these bookstores are doing is they're really heavily getting into programming, right? So they have, and they're so smart because they're partnering with like distilleries and breweries and galleries, and they're making themselves a hub of the community, of their communities. Bottom line, we really need that here in Rockland. We need somebody to do that in Rockland. So I'm putting it out there.
All right, and I'm sure this is being explored in your. I can't call it a publication because it's constantly updating on the internet.
It's a news site.
It's a 2020 version of a publication.
All right, Rockland County Business, rcbizjournal.com, right?
You got it right.
All right, so we'll talk to you, and if people are more interested in this, I'm sure you've got extensive reporting on it.
Yeah, we do actually.
Tina also posts, by the way, she posts these clips that we talk about here, the segment right here. You could, if you want to hear it later on, it's on her website too.
Okay.
That's right, and we also put it on Facebook.
Right.
And the story has some interesting stats on how many independent bookstores are opening and how many have closed, and so yeah, check it out, rcbizjournal.com.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Have a great week.
Tina Traster here at WR.